Good morning, everybody. It's Working Wednesday, or maybe it's afternoon by the time you're starting this assignment. Here's what I'd like you to do today to make some more progress on the road to the revolution. We're going to use Unit 1, The Nation is Born, February 8th through 12. When you get there, you are going to scroll down to Wednesday. Please remember I have an office hour from 11 to 12 if you want to talk to me or if you want to get some help with how to do your work or anything like that. Right now, you are doing number one. You're watching this Clarky Daily intro to understand what to do today. Let me give you a little bit of background to the Boston Tea Party in this video. The idea is, we fought the French and Indian War in class a couple weeks ago. The Frenchies lose. That's all good. The French go away. And now the 13 colonies can expand westward the whole way to the Mississippi River. But the British pass a series of taxes to try to help make the colonies pay for the war. The colonies aren't happy about this. We think the entire British Empire should be paying these taxes, not just the 13 colonies. We've had 160 some years of good relationships with the British Crown. The colonies are being very successful, but now we're getting into some uncertain times, especially because the American colonies don't have any representatives over there in Parliament who are elected and go to England to help make policies. This all gets handed down from the British government, dumped on the colonies, and we don't like it. Well, you may remember doing taxation frustration in class last week, where the king, who was me, being the grumpy old king that I am, was raising your taxes and, tried to make you a little bit frustrated with that. One of those taxes was called the Townshend Act, which put a tax on many things, but tea was part of that. Well, over time, here's what happens. Many of those taxes passed against the colonies have been repealed because there's so much protest in the colonies. The Stamp Act went away. In fact, they never even really collected any money. We really don't like the Quartering Act. And you might remember that's what inflamed things into the Boston Massacre. Well, the Quartering Act has been canceled. A number of things were canceled, but not that tax on tea that came from the Townshend Acts. But the Boston Tea Party is not really about an increase in the price of tea. It's really about a decrease in the price of tea. And that may not make any sense to you. Why are we mad about the price of something going down? Here's why. Do you remember doing the joint stock company activity where we invested some money in a colony and we rolled the dice to see what happened to our colony? Some things made our colony more successful. Some things made our colony less successful. Well, there are a number of things that could go into being more successful or less successful. And colonies and investing in colonies is very risky. Well, one of those real joint stock companies, called the British East India Company, imports a lot of tea into America. The king has invested heavily in this company, and a lot of his wealthy friends have also invested heavily. Well, because of some bad management and bad decision making and corruption, that East India Company is getting very shaky and might well go out of business. That means the king loses his money he's invested, and so do his wealthy friends. Well, they don't want that. So the wealthy friends come to the king and say, "Look, George the Third, if you can help us out here, you won't lose your money and we won't lose our money. We can stay in business. What we want you to do is lower the import tax on only British East India Company tea. Don't cancel the tax on all those tea companies, just ours, because that will make the price of tea go down for East India tea. The Americans will be happy because they can get tea for a cheaper price, and they'll save a little money. They can be happy that some of those taxes are lowered. And it'll make our company happy because we'll be able to stay in business. It's a win-win situation, right? All you do is lower the tax just for East India Company tea, and everybody's happy. But the Americans aren't. We blow up in anger. Why? Why would you be mad about the price of tea going down? Well, the American colonists are pretty smart people. They can see right through this scheme. This is not about doing favors for the colonies. It's about doing a favor for the king and his friends. Bail their company out so they don't lose money. And once again, they're expecting the American colonies to pay for the British bad decision making. The king and parliament think, hey, if we just lower the East India Tea Company, that'll make everybody happy. No, it's not. We don't think we need to be bailing out the king's friends and his financial situation. So that's why the Americans are so mad about the decrease in the price of tea. It's all a favor for the king to help his buddies. Well, what are we going to do about it? Well, in many places in the colonies, but especially in Boston, people decide, hey, look, the best way not to participate in this, not to help out the king, we're not unloading the tea off the tea ships. We're just going to let that tea sit there in the ships in the harbor. We'll unload everything else off those trade ships, but not the tea. And that seems like, hey, that's great. It'll work because the tea will just sit on the ships and they're going to have to leave the harbor with tea on it. The tea will not come into the city of Boston or other places. And that way we don't have to be part of this plan to help out the king and his friends. Well, of course, the king gets mad. The governor of Massachusetts gets mad. They say, oh, yeah? Not going to unload the tea off the ships, are you? Well, I'll tell you what, those ships are going to sit in Boston Harbor and they will rot unless you unload those tea containers or crates. We're not letting those ships leave Boston Harbor until the tea is unloaded. So we've got two sides going at it with each other here. One side saying, we're not unloading the tea because we don't like this policy of the tax going down on just one company's tea. And the British government saying, well, you unload those ships or the ships aren't leaving the harbor. That's a problem in Boston or any place really, because if enough tea ships are just sitting there waiting to be unloaded, that means more ships can't come into the harbor. And that's going to cause a bunch of problems. So we've got these two bullheads going at each other. Here's where Samuel Adams in Boston decides, hey, I got an idea. Let's play a funny prank. Let's unload the tea in a way that makes everybody happy. Let's unload the tea, and that makes the British happy because the tea is getting unloaded. But let's make the Americans happy by not letting that tea come into the city. Let's go down to those ships. Let's not destroy anything, not ruin the ships. We're only going to ruin the tea. Let's unload the tea and dump it in the harbor. It's a funny joke. It makes everybody happy, right? Tea gets unloaded, but no tea comes into the city. Everyone will be fine. Well, that's the Boston Tea Party. The nature of the Boston Tea Party, and there are others in other places, not just in Boston. But Sam Adams is really good at marketing. So 200 and something years later, we've heard of the Boston Tea Party and probably never heard of many of the other ones. Yeah, so Sam Adams gets a bunch of guys. They go down to the harbor. They dump a whole lot of tea into Boston Harbor. They don't damage the ships. They don't hurt any people. They don't hurt any other goods, just the tea. Dump it in the harbor, and there you go. So that's the story about why we're mad about a decrease in the price of tea, which it doesn't sound like that makes a lot of sense. Well, here's what you do today then. You're going to read two documents that have information about the Boston Tea Party. One of them is a secondary source written by someone who did not actually attend this Boston Tea Party. And what you're going to do there is you are going to highlight or emphasize or put onto the Google Doc here some information that you find in that secondary source. What you're looking for are some facts about the Boston Tea Party. And, this is not meant to be difficult. This, as you read the secondary source, you're going to be recording on your sheet. Well, I have at least 8 there. I'm going to change that to 4. At least 4 facts about the Boston Tea Party. And facts are provable statements. There are dozens of facts, like it was a cold December night in Boston. That's a fact. 3 British ships. That's a fact. There are tons and tons of facts in here. So you are welcome to record any of those on the Google Doc that I'll show you here in a second. All right, so there's what we're doing with the secondary source. The primary source, you'll read that story, which was written by someone who actually participated in the Boston Tea Party. And what you're doing is you're going to find at least 5 details here that are not in the secondary source. So maybe, this guy has what's the thing? Okay, so he picks up a small hatchet to take with him. That's an example of a detail that's not in the secondary source. Now, what are you going to do with those things? You're going to record those facts and those details in this Google Doc. When you open this all up, like we do, it takes several clicks, and you want to open it as a Google Doc so you can modify it. There we go. So you're going to record in this top part of the page, the secondary source document, and record any 4 facts about that event. And again, there are dozens of them. It's not going to be tough to come up with 4 facts. You can keep going to impress me. Show me that you can do above and beyond work. Lower part of this document, you're going to record some details from the primary source, maybe things that only someone who actually participated would know. And so you could keep going to impress me with even more things. You want to be sure, of course, you submit this when you're finished. Submit that document, and you are practicing the skill of using primary and secondary sources to learn information about a historical event. Remember, I have office hours from 11 to 12. If you are a little confused about what you're supposed to do today, you can Zoom with me at that time. Also, don't forget, preamble is coming up for either Thursday or Friday, February 18th or 19th, so you want to practice that. Use your little baggies, use videos, use Sporkle games, use whatever to practice the preamble. And also, we'll do current events on Thursday or Friday this week, depending which day you're here. So you want to use CNN 10 to prepare for that. All right, there you go. That's your work for today. See you all either Thursday or Friday.